violent activities and criminal activities against that courthouse.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Peters, Acting Secretary Wolf. Would you please
Way to go,
and know that our
Patriots.
thoughts and prayers are with the families of
I
any
really
officers
enjoy how many
injured,
people
in any of these
are seeing the deception of
attacks that were
this,
going on, and let them know that we're thinking about
the protest,
But I
the
do want to talk like everyone else
COVID-19,
about
all
domestic
of it.
terrorism, because this week we mark 1 year since a horrific terrorist attack in El Paso, in which 23 Americans lost their lives after a white supremacist targeted the city's Latino community in a deadly rampage. According to the FBI, white supremacists are the nation's most significant domestic threat.
That's not
Statistics
true.
show that racially motivated
Islam is.
violent extremism accounts for the majority of all domestic terrorist acts
That's
since
lie.
1994. Unfortunately, instead of addressing
Bureau
the
of
root causes
Justice
white
would
supremacist
disagree with
violence,
that.
this administration is using the domestic terrorism label to crack down on peaceful protesters exercising their First Amendment rights. To justify the presence of federal law enforcement in Portland, Acting Deputy Secretary Ken Cuccinelli
This
and
woman
other
thinks that we're
DHS officials
stupid,
have accused
that we don't see what's
demonstrators,
going
made up
on.
largely of students, veterans,
It's
mothers,
this
nurses, and
type
other
of person
Americans
that
crying
needs
out
to
for
be
racial justice, of
getting
terrorism.
out of all
President Trump has
government
referred to
jobs.
his fellow Americans as a beehive of terrorists. Branding peaceful protesters as terrorists is a tactic commonly used in autocratic societies, not
In 2018,
democracies.
Bureau of Justice reported
Politicizing domestic terrorism distracts our
390,000
mission to
black
keep
on white
Americans
crimes
safe
compared to
from violent
52,000
extremism, whether it's
white on
violence
black
targeting the
crimes.
Latino community in El Paso, Jewish community
A
in
lot
the
of
Tree of Life
lot of
shootout in
these that
Pittsburgh, or any
she
other
is
Americans.
mentioning has been
So, just
proven
yes or no, Acting
white
Secretary Wolf,
hate
because our
crime
time is limited,
hoaxes,
do you
just like
agree with the
Charlottesville
FBI's assessment that the top threat we face
killing of
from
Heather
domestic
Heyer,
terrorists
which
stems
died
from
of a
racially
heart attack.
motivated violent extremists,
And I have a
particularly
video
white
that
supremacists?
shows all the CGI
Yes, Senator, what I
in
would,
that
agree
story.
with,
That's
and I've
why
been on record,
ABC
strategy
removed it
back
from
in
their
September of 2019 does
their
support
platform.
a growing threat from domestic individuals here in the U.S., to include white supremacist extremism growing here. We see the number of incidents rising, and again, as I outlined to a question, I believe, from the ranking member, the department's taken a number of initiatives to address that. Let me just comment really briefly on a comment that you made that I strongly disagree with. DHS law enforcement in no way is cracking down on peaceful protesters in Portland. That is
I appreciate that, but I'd like to claim my time back and follow up on Ranking Members Peters' question. Thank you. You know, this administration has gutted the DHS budget to combat domestic terrorism, including by closing offices and cutting programs. Does the department have the resources it needs to prevent white supremacists from escalating their hateful rhetoric into violence?
Yes, and again, we have actually increased the number of funding to our grant program for targeted violence and terrorism prevention.
This
We have a
is
number of individuals dedicated to this
anti-white
mission.
rhetoric.
I will just say that from DHS's perspective, we don't investigate these. Obviously, that's the Department of Justice. What we do is training, information sharing, and outreach to different communities to make sure that they have the resources.
Then, Honorable
they
Chad
need to
Wolf,
do to
you
respond to
know
this.
the
The department is doing
statistics
that. We're doing that
are
in a
not
consistent way. There's a great
showing
program
white
that's going out. We've increased
supremacists.
the number of staff in that office, and we are implementing, as I responded to the ranking member, on our strategy to address all forms of violent extremism.
That's good to hear. Can you tell us about the amount of dollars that you've spent sending federal law enforcement agents to Portland that could have otherwise gone to combating violent extremism across our country? You know,
I don't
the
have the-
estimate on that cost?
Sure. I don't have the specific dollar figure that our assets being deployed to Portland. Again, we deployed assets to Portland because a federal courthouse was being set on fire every
Could
night.
you supply that budget for us? What was spent on that, please?
We will certainly provide that to the
And those
committee.
people in Portland are not
Appreciate it.
white
I wanna
supremacists.
move
They
now
are
and talk a little bit
paid
about DACA.
provocateurs.
You know, while you send law enforcement to major American cities without the consent of state and local leaders. In the background, DHS is you're taking
Senator
steps that's going to
Karen.
harm our dreamers, hundreds of thousands of them nationwide.
Wonder if
You know,
that's her
Nevada,
real
we're home to
name.
13,000 DACA recipients.
That'd be funny
Our
if it
dreamers
is.
are our friends, our neighbors, students, colleagues, small business owners, first responders, our medical professionals. In some cases, they contributed to our
Google
community
Maps
every single
now
day.
has
And the U.S.
a
Supreme Court
label on
recently
black-owned
sided against the
businesses.
administration in its quest to end the DACA program, concluding that its termination of DACA was arbitrary and capricious, and declaring that the matter
Salty
be
Army.
remanded to DHS so it may consider the problem anew.
Oh, yes,
In
we
other words,
are.
you, as acting DHS secretary, have the power
Hey, Salty
by
Cracker.
choice to protect
You got a fan
dreamers by
here.
preventing the DACA program
No, you got a
from being
couple here.
terminated. However, in a July 28th memo, you stated you were making changes to DACA and directing DHS personnel, and I quote, to take all appropriate actions to reject all pending and future initial requests for DACA, to reject all pending and future applications for advanced parole absent exceptional circumstances, and to shorten DACA renewals, end quote. This memo clearly ignores the U.S. Supreme Court's decision requiring for the U.S. citizenship USCIS to continue to accept and process DACA renewal applications. But you went on saying, and I'm going to quote again, I have concluded that the DACA policy at a minimum presents serious policy concerns that may warrant its full rescission, unquote. Again, the decision to pursue rescission of DACA program lies in your hands, and I urge you to consider how your actions to rescind the DACA program will adversely affect the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 200,000 DACA recipients have been working in areas
They
that
are
DHS,
undocumented because their
identifies
parents
as part of
broke the
essential
law.
Critical workforce infrastructure.
They
41,000
live
DACA
in
recipients
America.
working in the healthcare, physicians, nurses, paramedics, and the like. So please consider reviewing this and allowing these first responders, people on the first line, to continue to serve this nation. Thank you. My time is up.
Mr. Chair. Secretary, well, if you want to respond to something, Senator Rosen, I'll give you a minute if you want to do so.
The Supreme Court decision, obviously, that we are adhering to, is why I put out the movement note, why we're taking certain actions. In no way did the Supreme Court decision tell the Department to process new DACA applicants. The Supreme Court decision did not even say that the program was lawful. What it clearly did say is that DHS has the authority to rescind it. Now, of course, it didn't like the way that we had done that over the past 3 years. And so my memo that I signed out and the direction I've given to the department is to is to continue the program under certain parameters. As the senator said, no new DACA applicants or applications are being received, and we have limited renewals to 1 year. And we did that because we have ongoing serious concerns about this program that we are working through.
Looks like you have a lot of fans on here, Salty Cracker.
We're going to work through that carefully. We're going to consider everything that the court laid out. But what we didn't want to do is to continue to operate a program that has serious reservations, unlawful,
Another
goes against deferred action, goes against Congress's
It's
wishes.
the Salty Army
As we
out
do
in
that,
force.
Continue to process and renew applicants as we have done over the past 3 years.
That's responding to the last point she made. Was there something else she made a statement that you were on to respond to?
The salt
Again,
must
there were
flow.
several. One was the DHS law enforcement officials are cracking down on peaceful protesters in Portland. That's a false narrative. It's a narrative that continues to be
Salty
put out
Army
there.
again.
And it does a disservice to the men and women of law enforcement at the department. In no way are we, doing anything regarding peaceful protesting. I've said this time and time again. We see hours-long peaceful protesting that occurs in Portland every night, right across from the Hatfield Courthouse. There's no incidents, there's no arrests, there's no injuries. That is not what is occurring. That's not what our law enforcement officials are dealing with every day.
Okay, thank you. Senator Langford.